Hello, everyone. I'm Lene Willis. I'm a licensed therapist in Maryland, West Virginia, and Ohio. And I will be reviewing season 6, episode 1 of Love is Blind.
I wanna get to your clothes, gotta get it right now. I wanna push all the limits with you right now.
So the daters walk in optimistic, hoping to feel chosen for one another, sight unseen. This is the beauty of Love is Blind, right? Which I completely adore. And the season opened with the promises of love turned heartbreak, betrayal, and the usual drama that this show brings. I know I haven't really shared my thoughts in a video format, but I'm going to share it today, and I'm going to share it for the remainder of this season because I think it's important to have that perspective. Now, here are my first impressions of some of the castmates shown during most of episode 1. So Trevor, he kind of gives me muscle head off like physicality, but he seems open, gentle, and kind. His favorite movie is my favorite movie, The Notebook. So of course he gets like 2 stars for that. And then there's Chelsea. She's bubbly, sweet, and down to earth. She doesn't take herself too seriously, and she hears what she wants to hear when active listening is broken down by emotions. And I'll probably get a little bit more into that as I continue to see her throughout this episode and the next, or the remainder if she, stays in this process, we shall see. Now Jimmy, he just comes off country off the bat. Like I just pictured a cowboy hat, like which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being country, okay? I'm just saying he just definitely is country. He does seem a little quiet, maybe a little conservative, but still confident. He may have grown up poor, but I think from the experience that he shared, which was very little in this first couple of scenes, it has taught him lessons of acceptance and the need to be grateful. He also seems good-natured as well. Excuse me. He's thoughtful, but also a sucker for love. And he's non-judgmental, but he does have these like traditional values and beliefs surrounding children and marriage. It just kind of saw as the episode unfolded that this is the direction that it was headed. And then there's Jessica. She presents as classy and quirky, but strong-headed and sure. I think she's the one that said that she's a Capricorn and I'm a Capricorn. So I'm like, yeah, Jessica. So she has a daughter, and I know that having a child and entering a marriage or entering a relationship of any kind, really, it could become a bit tricky. So I'm looking to see who she ideally connects with as the show moves forward. Then there's Matthew. He presents as a challenge socially because he's a bit rigid. I guess first impressions, he also came off as rude. And then I'm like legitimately reading off my notes, and I was taking notes as I was watching episode 1 so that my notes are like very on track with what was happening. And I said, yikes. He said he's cold. And I said, he's definitely that. I wanted to put that there was some autism traits in there, but I know that that could seem negative for some people, but it's not. It's just indicating that there are some social things that are not, that are a bit disjointed. But anyway, he's definitely cold. And then I also said, yes, Matthew, your therapist was shocked that you would be going into this social experiment, considering that you are kind of, have some social challenges, and you can be kind of rude. So I'm definitely shocked as well as a therapist. And then I feel like this is just completely out of his comfort zone. But definitely kudos to him for going there and opening up and being in that space. Then of course there's Amber, AD. Something about her I just connect with. I'm not quite sure why. She comes off as sexy, but also seems sweet and gentle. And she has the ability to make people feel open. So talking to Matthew, who kind of presented as this very cold person, she was able to get him to open up. And you saw as the season opened and, Matthew started talking to women. I think one woman, he even walked out of the room very rude. I put he's also rude. That's the reason why I put he's also rude in there. But anyway, Amber has an ability to just make people feel comfortable and to make them feel open. And she was able to do so nicely with Matthew and as well as Clay. She's also flirty. So she kind of gives like, yeah, I could be a good person to date. And then of course, Clay, he gives off player vibes immediately. But of course, we're seeing all of the singles, they're not seeing one another as they're dating. So I'm looking at Clay's mannerisms. I'm looking at the way that he describes himself. And these are just, again, my initial impressions of him. It seems like he prefers a woman to chase him. This is, we'll see how this all unfolds. He seems comical and sexual, but also has difficulty connecting to his emotions. And it was something that he said in relation to him wanting a cat that just gave off to me the fact that he is disinterested in connecting to his emotions. Just, again, first episode. And I think that the way that he described that it might make it difficult for him to connect on love versus sexuality. He did also say that his ego is huge. And I said, yup, figured that already, especially when he said he doesn't provide that sense of security emotionally. He's private. He shows up loud, but not because you're loud means that you're very open. But it seems like he holds his emotions like tight to the chest. So we'll see how Clay plays off. Not play off, but we'll see how he comes off in the remaining episodes. Then there's Amy. Something about her also like drew me into her. I don't know about Amber, Amy, Jessica. So far, those are the top 3 women that I feel most connected with. Amy now, she feels like, it seems like she's very interested in culture and eager to become informed on different cultures. She's eager to travel. She's family oriented. She has a Latina background that she's very proud of. She comes off as independent and unapologetically herself, despite the hurdles that she's hit socially. She kind of spoke about her background, and this made me say that. And I think that probably helps her come off as very relatable. But at the core of it, I do see that she just wants acceptance, right? She just wants to be accepted for who she is without having to make excuses for who she is, right? And then there's Johnny. He gives off beach boy with a snatch of business style. He does seem down to earth. He seems open to the process with a solid childhood, and he's also family oriented. But I'll share a little tidbit at the end about who I feel would be good matches based on what we saw in this first episode. So super quick feedback. There's no right time to bring up that you have a child without it taking over the initial conversations and the connection that you're trying to form with someone, right? Because talking about a child or bringing up a child so early on in those conversations, it could end up becoming the focus of the conversation, but it definitely is still something that needs to be brought up during those initial conversations. I know a child can be a deal breaker for some, and it's definitely worth taking the time to process that, to determine whether you want to take on someone's child, whether you want to have a child of your own, and if that is a deal breaker for you. Any of those things, having your own child, being a step parent or a bonus parent to someone else's child that you're entering a relationship with, those are all things that you really need to sit down and like think about thoroughly, especially in a process like this that's like super intense. And then divorce can be a huge deal breaker. I know this was one of like the quote unquote secrets that were brought up. And I believe it was Chelsea that might have mentioned it somewhere. But some people, when they see divorce or when they hear about divorce, they think that, okay, well, if this person is divorced, then are they even fit, or are they ready to remarry? And I know a lot of the times when you think about divorce, people think about, well, how soon after a divorce is it appropriate to date? I say it depends on your age. I think it depends on the milestones that you're currently in your life. which can lend itself to your age, but not necessarily, right? Because people reach different milestones at different ages. And then also, sometimes some people are not over the person that they were with before, and it is never appropriate to jump into, especially an intense dating situation like this, before ensuring that that previous relationship has been fleshed out of your system. Not to say that you won't care about the person, not to say that you wouldn't wish well for them, especially if you share a child from that previous marriage. But it's definitely something that needs to be a bit more resolved before you jump into a new relationship and take on all of the challenges and the dynamics of your old relationship with the new relationship. So everyone can see as a deal breaker, and some people may not see as a deal breaker. It can go either way. Now, I guess one of the things that kind of came up for me too, that I really want to make sure I state, because it's a sticking point, when dating, it is critical to listen intently because things are missed. When we're listening, there are a couple of basic skills that I teach couples when I'm working with them. One is active listening. I know people talk about it all the time, but do they actually use the skill? Not always. And then there is assertive communication, where you're communicating what your needs are in a soft startup format that allows the person to hear what it is that you're trying to communicate clearly without feeling like you're judging them. But focusing on the active listening part, there was a scene, and if I can find it, I'll pull it up and put it right here. In this scene, you see that Jimmy communicated something to Chelsea, and she said the exact opposite of what it is. And he said just that to her, like, you're communicating the exact opposite of what it is I'm trying to communicate. And I feel like sometimes when you are dating, if you're not listening to the person intently, things are missed. And I think for the most part, that happens when you become emotionally flooded and you're not positioning yourself to actually hear what the person is saying. So it is important that to ensure that you've understood what was communicated, you use reflective listening skills. You say, hey, am I understanding you correctly? It sounds like you were saying this. Is that what you meant? And then the person can say, yes, that's what I was saying, or no. And you say, oh, okay, got it. You were saying ba 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 ba. So again, definitely when dating, it's important to listen, because when you become so open and you're being emotionally thrown into a very high stress situation, things are missed, and the things that are missed can end up have you and the person that you're interested in kind of like crossing one another's paths in a not healthy way, which would lead to disconnect, right? And bless her heart, Chelsea, she seems super cute and she seems super sweet, but I really think that was a missed opportunity for her to connect with Jimmy. Instead, it probably made him feel like, I don't know if she's listening. And he, kind of identified that almost immediately. The last thing I'm going to add before I go, I want to jump into the potential matches. So off of the first couple of connections, I think what I would like to see and the relationships that I think would flourish, first off, I feel Jimmy and Jessica would work really well together, but low-key, Jimmy can also match with Chelsea too. This is the first episode, so I don't know. Jimmy just kind of comes off very open, well-mannered, and he could probably be a good fit for anyone. There are some people that can adjust to whomever, and he seems like he can adjust, but he also has these very traditional beliefs and ideas of roles that I'm kind of picking up on. I'm not sure what's giving it to me, but we shall see. And then there's Trevor and Chelsea. The fact that they have dogs named after each other is low-key wild, but we'll see how that goes. Now, originally, when I first started taking notes on who would be a potential match, I definitely had Matthew and AD down, because I was like, oh, AD got those walls down in Matthew. He's open. He's being transparent. He's there for the cause. And then that last tidbit showed at the end of the episode. And I'm just like, no, Matthew, what? And I put here because Matthew apparently lies. And I was gonna say Matthew and AD and not AD and Clay, but after the bomb in that last segment, AD has a better shot with Clay. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. And then the final match that I'm seeing that I think is probably worth something to talk about is Johnny and Amy. They just seem so super sweet to each other. We don't get to see all the dates that each of the individuals go on, so we don't have a true sense of what's happening in all of the dates and with all of the connections and how people are completely weeded out. But from what we have seen in episode 1, I have Jimmy and Jessica, Trevor and Chelsea, possibly Clay and AD, and then Johnny and Amy. And we'll see how that goes from there. That's my feedback. I'm looking forward to sharing my feedback for episode number 2. I'll talk about it some more. If you have any questions, feel free to post it below. In the description, there will be notes with timestamps for the intro, the first impression, the therapist feedback, and then potential matches. Thanks for watching.